Okay, so the cerebral cortex is the outer covering of gray matter over the two cerebral hemispheres, the left and the right side. It's typically about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. It covers, gyri and sulci. Remember, the gyri are the surface areas of cortex, right? And the sulci are the valleys, or where it sort of descends below the surface and then comes back up. There are some, pretty significant landmarks here too. That are larger than just sulcal valleys. They include, for example, the lateral fissure. Right, this is a very deep kind of infolding of the cerebral cortex that'll work its way in, basically along the plane of the temporal lobe or the planum temporale, and then it'll sort of go in and then down and then back up and then back in and out. And deep inside there is, another lobe of the brain. This is the insular lobe. Now, most of the cortex that we're looking at here from the lateral view, for example, and from the dorsal view, right, or the superior view, where you can see the longitudinal fissure, right, which separates the two hemispheres of the brain, is what we call neocortex. But there are, phylogenetically, kind of evolutionarily older areas. Many of them are located, far deeper inside that lateral fissure, like areas like the insula, portions of the insula, for example, sort of more medially in the brain. So, portions of the medial temporal lobes, for example, the hippocampus, and areas around that are much older, regions of the brain. These ancient portions of cortex, they don't have the same sort of circuitry as, for example, the neocortex, which represents the vast majority of, the surface gray matter of the brain. I'm just going to show you a couple of these ideas or locations utilizing this coronal section, right, basically of the brain. Let's see if I can get this without reflection. But you can sort of see here is that deep longitudinal fissure, between the two hemispheres of the brain. And you can sort of see this gyrus really deep down below here, just overlying the corpus callosum, that band of white matter that connects the two hemispheres of the brain. That's called the cingulate gyrus. Remember, it's an important limbic structure. The anterior cingulate is the target, of internal milieu afferent sensory information, detected by nuclei in the hypothalamus, via the thalamus, into the anterior cingulate right there. And other, ancient areas include the hippocampus, which is here in the medial temporal lobe on both sides, and the insular lobe. So here's the lateral fissure, sort of separating the temporal lobe from the overlying, both frontal lobe and the parietal lobe. But as you go back in here, there's cortex going up this way, cortex going down this way, and then up this way, and then coming back out the planum temporale. Well, that cortex deep inside, extending, anterior or rostrally, right, or posterior or, caudally towards the occipital end of the brain, right? That's called the insular lobe. And portions of that are also, older forms of cortex, and not what we're going to see soon, the sort of more consistent 6-layered structure that characterizes neocortex, which again makes up the bulk of the